Greetings.
How you doing? I'm
You
Mike.
must be Calhoon.
Yeah, you can call me Mike.
Hey, we're hometown natives, just kind of learning a lot about our city and stuff. Just kind of had some questions that have been slowly building up a little bit. So, first off, are there any easements that are closed in the city?
Don't know. Tell you the truth, I mean, an easement.
More specifically,
Yeah.
is there an easement? Are there any easements adjacent to parks that are closed?
Because it's
At night.
considered part of it.
Because it's part of the park, but it's also obviously next to the street. You know, because we see people all the time, as an example, on the Linden Center Drive.
Okay, yeah.
In the easement there.
Right. You're talking about on the sidewalk?
Yeah, on the sidewalk.
Okay.
Just sitting on a bench, for instance,
Right.
and it's after hours. Is that considered a violation of anything?
Boy, as far as I know, if they're, I mean, when you say after hours, I don't know exactly.
We saw what ended up being a map of the Jefferson Park,
Okay.
but it was based on the lease, so it goes curb to curb.
Okay.
So it evidently
probably is,
includes
yeah.
the easements.
Yeah,
but-
the sidewalk.
yeah.
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 I would say that, just, because I'm not a lawyer or anything, but what I can tell you is that if it's inside of our park there, our park's closed at 11 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
Every park in town.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 5 a.m. to 11
Yep.
is our open and close time.
Yep.
And so if somebody's there after 11 o'clock, they're not supposed to be in the park at all.
Yeah. But
So it doesn't matter if it's a sidewalk or not.
well, the whole point behind the sidewalk that we
Yeah.
noticed was we contacted Streets Department one time,
Mhm.
just kind of curious, because we thought it was a street issue.
Right.
They said unless it's otherwise posted, it's an easement that's open 24 hours a day. They actually were concerned that we would be using the street instead of the sidewalk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying, walking.
So
Walking
if
there.
it's not,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. So their
sure.
indication was if it's not posted that it's closed,
Mhm.
that it's otherwise assumed to be open.
Yeah, the interesting thing would be, just like you said, because see, Jefferson's a different beast for us. Because it's our
Yeah.
only park in town that
You don't own.
yeah,
Yeah.
or Cooter School District doesn't own.
Really?
Because, yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
because-
that.
Oh, Porter School District.
yeah. Well, we've got some parks that, we purposefully put our parks right next to schools
Ah.
so that we can share
Ah.
maintenance.
Oh,
So like
makes
today,
sense.
they were doing some of the snow removal in our parks.
Huh.
And we were doing some of the snow removal at their schools.
Oh, that's easy.
And that's because why send two people with the exact same piece of equipment to the same spot to do the same job?
That's-
Whenever we can say, hey, why don't you do Riffenberg and we'll do Beatty?
Yeah.
So one person going to each spot, and then we still get the job done, and it's more efficient that way. So sometimes we do have overlap with schools, but Jefferson Street Park is the only park that we have in our system that's owned by private organization, and it's actually was owned by Burlington Northern,
Yep.
and they just sold it to
Oh, so it's not owned by the city?
no.
Because I saw the deed for it. It said it was purchased by the city.
Mm-mm.
Maybe I wasn't
Mm.
deeping.
No. No, the city does not own Jefferson Street Park. It was owned by Burlington Northern, and it just sold to somebody else.
So it's still considered private property.
Well, no, because they
They
lease
lease
it.
it
Yeah,
with
we
the
lease
idea
it.
that
We
it's
lease it for a
ours.
park.
Yeah.
As a park. So
Yeah.
you can still get like
So it's the same rules,
Same
rules.
jurisdiction.
same jurisdiction, all that stuff in the same spot. But I have a feeling that that's not gonna happen, or I have a feeling that's going away because that
Oh, yeah,
that new
we've
company
heard.
who bought it. I don't,
I just
I've
saw
heard
that
things like
Lance
parking
post up
lot.
there,
Yeah,
yeah.
you see that was in direct relationship to it because when they purchased it, I want to say it's called like Linden Street Properties or something like that. That's the name of the company who bought it. But I saw something in the communication that said that they were required to put up a 6-foot fence along the back property line.
Yep, that's what I
And that's
saw
that
the
chain
other
link
day.
fence that you see in
Yeah.
there now, because it was really kind of strange, but they had in our lease, we actually leased from the middle of the train track
Yeah.
to the curb. And it's like, whoa, why would we want to own or lease something to the middle of the train track? We don't want, I mean, that's a safety issue right there,
Pointless.
So what they did is they took that part out of the sale,
Ah.
so that the stuff you see to the north of the fence is owned by Burlington Northern, and it's private property, and the stuff that you see south to the fence is still being ran as a park, because they wanted to continue that,
Yeah.
but they said that they're gonna develop it within a year,
Ah.
and I think it's gonna be office buildings.
Oh, joy.
Nah, that's the way it
Yeah.
goes. I mean, it's like Mountain View Tire Center, it's the same thing. It's going to office buildings.
yeah.
On
Oh,
Mountain
that
Street.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the abandoned building there.
Yeah, it's going to an
Yeah,
office
so.
building. So, but
Okay.
But yeah, so
See, that was just one of the big ones. Was yeah, if there's no notices, I'm torn between streets telling me I can, but then you tell me I can't.
yeah,
And
you know, what it comes down to is I mean, I'd have to, we'd have to dig into code to see. I mean, it's a sidewalk, and that's what it's intended to do, is allow people to have conveyance down the road without having to walk in the road, because we don't want to put people in harm's way.
Yeah.
So.
But with a bench there, it's presumed that they can sit.
Yeah, but it's part of a park. It would be like out here, City Park, for instance. We're open 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. If somebody's walking through the sidewalk in City Park, they could potentially be violating the.
But is that a sidewalk that's adjacent to any publicly open streets?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the park.
So it's more like it's inside the park boundaries.
But
versus
but I mean, like the one on Jackson, the one on Oak is right next to the curb.
So you wouldn't even be able to use those sidewalks?
Technically, you're not. You're not supposed to be on the.
But the whole
you're not supposed to be in the park.
notice.
But I mean, we've got
where the streets tells me I have the presumed ignorance of the law side.
Right.
So
And
that's kind of where I'm.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would really, care one way or the other if somebody's just walking down the sidewalk. It's I think when police gets involved and they start seeing people inside the interior of the parks after 11 o'clock at night, that's when they go in there and start looking for people.
Yeah.
They see something, see a light,
Exactly.
something
Well,
like that.
we kind of worried too. We saw people on the on the easement.
Right.
The park. Drive by, not ticket.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're doing is they're in a way they're exercising good judgment, because why would you want to ticket somebody who's walking on the sidewalk next to a street instead of forcing them out into a street where they'd be in harm's way?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but I think technically they're probably right that if it's inside the park boundary, the parks are open 5 a.m. to 11
do
p.m.
you have a map of Jefferson Street or Jefferson Park by any chance? Of the actual just like publicly available map, or is that something you can go online for?
Well, we've got them online. I know that.
Okay, so it's just the regular stuff online.
Yep,
Just
the regular stuff
FC
online. And then you go to services. There's a services tab, and you go to Parks Department, and then it's got a park inventory list.
Okay.
So you can just pull all that stuff up.
Because if that map is incorrect, then that would.
Then
credence.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Was that your only question?
No, there was a really important one. When it comes to ticketing people, we're kind of new to law, so we're trying to figure something out. We've just noticed how sometimes there's this discretion the officers use. Is there any statutes out there that actually let them not ticket people when they should be? And so, like a true, like an unlimited discretion, like we see you ticketing.
Yeah. I've never seen one. That actually defines that.
Yeah. Is there anybody that is exempt from having to apply the law for whatever reason?
That's commissioned to?
Yeah, that's commissioned.
Yeah, saying that they can't do their job.
Well, I haven't seen anything like that. To tell you the truth. I've seen the things that I've seen in our code that we use in the municipal code. Just talk about like after hours.
Yeah.
It has to be posted. It has to be signed, and then they can write a ticket. But I mean, the way we approach it, is more of a community policing approach, where you try to educate people and you try to get them to do what's right by saying, hey, do you realize it's midnight and you're not supposed to be in the park, if they're obviously not doing something destructive.
I guess
if somebody's graffiti, spray painting something or tearing something down or burning something, when they catch them, they're probably going to get a ticket. But if they're just in the parks, and
I guess
and approach them.
A plain example would be catching them repeat drinking in a park or something like that.
Right.
And giving them a ticket each time. What would give them the reason to not ticket them for alcohol the next day?
Repeat,
the next
see
day.
repeat violations.
I don't know. That one to me seems like it'd be pretty simple. If you got a repeat violator or offender, and you've already done the community policing approach, the progressive stuff where you told them dump it out, don't do it again. You come back the next week, they're doing it
That
again.
kind of thing,
So you write them a ticket. Then you come back the next week and they're doing it again. You write them another ticket. I would think you'd keep giving them tickets, because really what we're trying to do is get them to comply. And
Exactly.
and I'd rather just say, hey man, there's no drinking in the parks, and if you would dump that out, and don't do it
Exactly.
again. And if you say sure, I'd say great. you know,
Yeah.
have a great day, you know, and hopefully we never have the problem again.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like dog off leash stuff. You know,
Yeah, it's true.
you know, that was one of the things that we really focused on a couple of years ago, and you know, we see people with dogs off leash, and as long as you could approach them and say, hey man, you know, we got a leash.
I've always wondered, what was that for? Do dogs just run around, go into traffic, cause
Well,
problems?
and they can be aggressive.
For
you know,
biting, attacking other
you
dogs.
know, I mean,
scaring
other dogs, people, kids, because you know, you run into the problem where you know, I don't know about you guys, but I run big dogs, Chesapeake Bay Retrievers, and you know, when a Chesapeake is 90 pounds comes running at you, even if he's a nice dog,
It's pretty scary.
it looks kind of scary.
Yeah.
You know, and that upsets some people. You know, and
I
there
was
is a
always-
leash law. That's actually a county-wide law. You know,
I was just slightly curious. about
but
that.
that's why we have that, is because we don't want, and of course we don't want the animal to get hurt, because if they don't have good control over it and it goes running out in the street, gets hit,
Yeah,
you know, and that could have been handled just by having a leash on it.
because they don't presume it's a safe dog, and like, oh, I could play fetch with you, and
Yeah.
it turns out it causes a
Uh-huh.
10-car pileup or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's just, you know, try to apply the common sense as much as you can, you know, to it. But
I guess my question is different from yours. Is there an actual policy for your rangers to not do their job? Basically, whatever the municipal code that they're enforcing, maybe alcohol, camping, park curfew, littering, what would give them the reason to not?
to not do their job.
Yeah, when you
Well,
see them repeat violating again. and
I
again.
mean, oh yeah,
Meaning, presume they're already ticketed for that, and then they're repeat violating, and yeah.
I would think that they would enforce again in one level or another.
Or if there was, what we're trying to get at is if there was a conflict of interest with that person, would they at least, at the very least, call in someone
like
else to
another
enforce that
ranger
law?
or another
Oh yeah,
cop to do it.
they you know, if we had a situation where somebody had a history with somebody else, I would recommend that they always team up, go in pairs,
Yeah.
ask for backup.
Oh, okay, not necessary conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but if you had a history with somebody, you know, that kind of thing, that if somebody was acting aggressive or anything like that, I got to look out for the safety of our rangers. So I would ask them that they don't contact somebody and get the police to help us if we feel like that there's something where it's not going to go
Oh,
right.
I see. So Ranger does have kind of the obligation to call in police for backup if they
Oh, yeah.
can't enforce the law.
Yeah, well, if they feel the need, that's their backup.
Yeah. And
Is-
Like,
our
say
police
they
department.
can't ticket the graffiti kids because they'll be violent, throwing bottles, and so that's where they kind of
Yeah.
have the dress of they're
Yeah.
being violent, and then eventually they would get on with the graffiti.
yeah. So no matter what, there's that backup that's
Oh, yeah.
presumed to always be in effect,
Mhm.
regardless.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
you know, it's just kind of a redundancy, right? I mean, it's you know, I don't want to send somebody into a situation. We make the assumption that when we have our rangers out there, that they're going to be able to contact people, and it's going to end constructively. You know, it's going to end where people comply. We don't have any confrontation. Everybody's on the same page, and we go away. And you know, a lot of times, hopefully, we don't even have to write a ticket. You know, it's just more of let's get people to do what we need them to do per our rules. But if all of a sudden it turns south and there's conflict starting, you know, the rangers are instructed to back away. You know, don't get in the middle of something, because we don't want to see anybody get hurt. We don't want to see the person you're dealing with, the citizen you're dealing with, and we don't want to see the ranger get hurt.
Because the Ranger is not necessarily a peace officer, so it doesn't have the same.
Yeah, it's not
rights
same
to
commission.
commission.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
not. They're not commissioned the same, but
But
they will go out and
They're
and,
still an expert witness for their
Oh, yeah.
whole area
Yeah,
they
exactly.
run. Yeah.
and you know, and they'll go out and they'll call the cops
Okay.
because that's their backup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, truth be told,
Mm-hmm.
obviously these are really strange questions leading up to something. Could we possibly ask for your help in finding out why Mike West decided not to ticket us for 2.5 weeks when we were in Lee Martinez Park? We're hometown natives in a
Mhm.
nutshell. We basically have lost both our jobs and places all at the same time this spring. We've been working to get back to regular scheduled programming.
Yeah.
We tried the shelters. We've been harassed at them, so
Mhm.
we're having to decide between leaving the county or the city every night or challenging the potentially most likely unconstitutional camping bans according to Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that during this feud, Ranger West had contacted us, given us a ticket
Mhm.
in Lee Martinez Park,
Mm-hmm.
right next to the
The little museum.
the museum right there, just in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
basically, 3 more weeks went by,
Mhm.
and we were never once approached again. Yet we
We
have
actually
in police
assumed
reports
that it was, like, they may have ran into a problem with their job and, like, they had to, I don't know, like, no. Like,
yeah, like
say
they
if
were
a-
giving us a due process to fight the ticket or something like that. We
Yeah.
literally
Like-
thought that we
like
were
we would go to
allowed to
court
stay
for,
there because they
I don't
didn't
know,
come back.
something
like that.
They told us, to leave, but we knew that there's due process.
Yeah.
And so because they never came back, and we have read in a police report later that they basically had seen us there and had been advised not to ticket us.
Mm-hmm. You guys had didn't have a pleasant contact, did you?
It wasn't the most pleasant. No.
Yeah, and that may be where it comes from. Is I think the
But it
police.
definitely
It's
didn't constitute
understandable.
illegal, though, is what
No,
we
but
get.
I mean, if it's aggressive, and our rangers feel threatened, like I said, I'm not going to send them into a situation where they feel threatened. I know that Mike and Bud have been down in there lately, and they tagged and removed a site that were in there. It was in.
Oh well, we always take our stuff with us.
Yeah.
We have just air mattresses.
Yeah.
It's not even
So I mean,
camping.
yeah. Well, they found. I
But-
mean, I saw pictures of it. It was a tent and all this stuff, and it had been left in there a couple of days, and
That's probably one
Yeah.
of the lazier
Yeah.
people.
so they had went in there and tagged it because that's. I mean, if you take your stuff with you, they don't know you've been there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if we see evidence, if it looks like a camp on our grounds, then we'll go in and tag it, and they've got. I think we give them 48 hours to remove their possessions.
property, yeah,
and then if
exactly.
they don't, then we remove it.
Yeah.
And we've done that a couple of times in the last couple of weeks down there, or last month, I know at least. So,
Yeah.
so I mean, they've been in there, but if you had a contact with Mike that wasn't pleasant and he felt threatened, I've told him it doesn't matter who it is. If you feel threatened in a situation, I want you backing away. And if you recognize that person in another setting, I want you to back away and call the police.
Kind of
So
like,
you would still have an obligation to enforce the municipal code violation that you witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
There
I mean,
would be
well,
no excuse not to.
well, you would. I wouldn't put it that way, because when we call the police, we say, "Hey, this is what we've got going on, camping ordinance, or
Also,
whatever we
police could
say."
be like,
Yeah.
he's under investigation, don't touch him.
Well, or the police could be like, "You know what? We've got 4 car accidents. We've got 1 rape that we're investigating right now,
That
and
makes
we ain't
sense.
got anybody.
Okay.
And this doesn't fall to the top of our priority list, so they may not send somebody."
but
So
there was
if they don't
there was
even-
another ranger there, though.
Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to get at is if it's like if they have no reasoning behind it to stop taking us, then it would be most likely that they would call in a police officer to come in and do the job.
Yeah.
We're just flabbergasted that for 2.5 weeks, he was advised initially, I guess, to never contact somebody else at all if he found
They
us
were
again.
advised
So
to not contact me, except there was.
not contact
there
us
was
or
literally-
contact police to have the code enforced.
He was more of the one involved with the situation, let's call it.
Mhm.
I am always a witness bystander to it.
Mm-hmm.
In the statement, it was basically stating that he was advised to stay away from me. But that would involve a restraining order or a police call or an assault or something violent.
Yeah, so he wasn't writing him tickets either. And so, like we said, it would be nice if we could find out, from you via West Haynes or Mike West,
Mm-hmm.
if there's some logic or reason so we can know for our own benefit, because, the reason why we moved was a whole different reasoning, but
Mhm.
the whole purpose is like, if these are my tax-paying dollars, why and what reasoning does he have to legally not enforce my laws?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it kind of looks like, since they weren't coming back, that they were setting us up for what looked like a unticketable
Defiance.
situation, or like we
Hmm.
thought that, oh, he's just not coming back, ticketing
Yeah.
us.
Mm-hmm.
They
claim
were
that we
claiming
were-
that we were unticketable, and then you see how that lack of communication,
Mm-hmm.
where we thought we were innocently out there, they were building a case, basically.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the whole strange thing is the defense of that we were unticketable when you obviously showed that you can call in a police officer just
Mhm.
fine to go help them
Yeah.
do
That's
their
why
job
it's
and
really a
stuff.
head scratcher what would cause someone to not do
Yeah.
their job.
I mean, 'cause we know that the police report included type of investigation that they're really not doing a very good job on. They misinterpreted the events with West Haynes, or
Mhm.
Mike West and West
Mhm.
Haynes. And basically, we just can kind of see how potentially, and we
Mhm.
don't want to assume anything, but
Mhm.
if they're not ticketing us for several weeks, is there an actual legal reason, or is it them trying to build their own case to make us look like we're defiantly staying and
The reason why
so
is
forth.
there's a report out there with a very concerning statement on it,
Mhm.
that we had threatened to kill him.
Mm.
yeah, which during the ticketing,
Mhm.
I had no choice but to place him under citizen's arrest for a previous offense that I had witnessed, and I,
Mhm.
1632
He had tried to detain us in the middle of the afternoon for a trespassing charge in South Gold Park.
Mhm.
Yeah, we kind of needed to report this to you eventually.
We were actually
Um,
trying to get a hold of him months ago.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so to start off, we were in Southfield Park, middle of the
Mhm.
day. He came up to us, started asking questions about some car. We
Mhm.
kindly shook our head, he didn't notice, so we kindly said, we don't answer questions. When we
Mhm.
did that, he stepped back, and in the exact tone.
Hold on, he asked again, and we said, we just don't answer questions without our attorney present.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then basically he stepped back and said these three statements. Oh, that's interesting. When we didn't respond, if you guys don't cooperate, I'm going to get you on trespassing. And then, since we didn't respond further, he said, I'm going to remember you guys while he pulled out his personal camera to take pictures of us.
Hey, you guys.
And so we were concerned of, well, that's
Being
that's
in a
what
picture
happened initially.
database for not being a criminal is another concerning issue that it's
Yeah, but basically the next event was where he found us in the forest and ticketed us.
Mhm.
And I had, like I said, I had no choice but to call it citizen arrest. But I wasn't calling it out during the ticketing procedure.
Mhm.
But they're trying to claim that we were trying to stop them from ticketing us using the
They're
citizen
trying
arrest.
to use the thing that we're being defiant, that we're just literally assisting arresting them to physically stop them from writing us the ticket when we're like, hey, well, just write us the ticket, we'll gladly take this to a trial.
Mhm.
We're just saying this on the side,
Mhm.
and we clarified for that for them, so they have no reason to play ignorant, and they're taking it out of context to basically really defame us.
Yeah,
So we're, we don't know why we're being ticketed. We looks like
Mhm.
we're guilty, but we're really just waiting for someone to come.
The reason why is
through
it
the process.
shifted from a harassment charge to a felony, and now he's being processed in courts.
I'm being, I hate to say this, but according to what Mike West has reported, contrary to our actual experience, he is reporting that I'm basically defiant, violent, threatening to kill, and so essentially I'm being framed for an attempt to influence a public servant, whereas I specifically told them in the middle of me saying citizen arrest, I'm not citizen arresting you for the tickets.
We were basically
and
saying, save your job, it's unconstitutional, what are you doing ticketing disabled minorities in the forest? This isn't just your transient methods who don't have anywhere to live.
Mhm.
And it's just a what if, that's all we threw out there was,
Mhm.
freedom of speech, that's it.
Yeah, and so they basically took everything out of context, and obviously decided that it was too risky to enforce their law, which is kind of like the building this case that we're defiantly in the
The
forest.
reason why it was also concerning is
Yeah.
because there was a police officer going along with Wes Haynes saying that not even a police officer could have enforced it alongside with Mike West. Because Wes Haynes was there the second time.
Yeah, he was
And
the
then
same
after
guy
that,
that-
they started building. the
Ironically,
case.
the officer we called when we attempted to citizen arrest the first time
Mhm.
was the officer that showed up with Mike West to ticket us. And
Mhm.
so when we tried to explain citizen's arrest, it was the same brick wall. You didn't understand us the first time, you're defaming us the second time.
Yeah.
And so it's all, humbo jumbo. What
Yeah.
we were really concerned about with purposes of you and his job
Mhm.
is that initially what started all was he approached us in a park with, which you can ask
Yeah.
questions, but as
Oh,
soon
yeah.
as we refused politely to answer questions,
Mhm.
he treated us so poorly that it caused a harassment charge and a citizen's
It-
arrest because I
It
couldn't
definitely
handle it.
constituted, one clause under the harassment charge of
Yeah,
repeated
subsection H,
taunting.
19.3.1.1.
And since it was against a, socioeconomic protected status, it became a first degree harassment charge. For instance, if you were to say the N-word to a black person,
Mhm.
or, same thing with Palestinians or
Mhm.
any other
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're just kind of reporting that he evidently thought that we were in violation of some sort of statute.
Mhm.
We had our
Um,
homeless gear with us, and may I clarify, we've been getting targeted all around town simply for having homeless gear. So that's
Mhm.
why.
Yeah, firecrackers, things like that.
Mhm.
So we know there's discrimination out there. We just, when he stopped us, he obviously didn't respect anything we had to say, went straight to something about trespassing and not cooperating. The statement was, if you guys don't cooperate, I'll get you on trespassing.
Mhm.
If that's what the ranger's going out there telling people, what we're worried about mostly is somebody who doesn't know their rights that finds out later and basically sues him because he's not doing his job.
Mhm.
And what we see is, there's this correlation of this town thing thinks that homeless people all have warrants, and so they'll try to not wait around to see the person in the act so that they can legally take their ID to see if there's a warrant. They're skipping all the process just to get it, assuming that a homeless person has a warrant. Meaning the whole, pulling over a car that's completely legal, and then later getting alcohol in there, or running the person's ID to see that he was a murderer on the run. But considering it wasn't a first crime, they couldn't have stopped him in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
That's basically what Mike West did to us in the park.
Yeah, and I mean, what you guys are talking about, and I've heard around the edges a lot of what you guys are referring to, but, you know, where I'm standing at, you know, I've got a ranger program. I ask them to go out and enforce the ordinances, the municipal ordinances of our park system, is what I ask them to do. If they're stepping outside those boundaries, we'll talk to them about it. We'll try to correct that. You know, and
exactly that.
You know, but at the same time, you guys have due process, as you know, and you're referring to ordinances and violations that I don't have any knowledge of, as far as, you know, what code number it is and what you know, and all that stuff, because I that isn't the world I live in. But you know, you guys have due process, and you can, you know, just like you said, you got free speech, and you guys can do whatever you want to do as far as taking the issue to the police or taking this issue to the city attorney's office.
Well, the whole due process thing, just to
Yeah.
kind of tell the truth in this, but we sort of are in the boat because we don't have that due process, because we did call the police officer who lied to us about citizen arrest rights, also lied on his actual police report, told us that we needed to file an internal complaint, which was a violation of his own police manual policy, and then ended up telling us that there's nothing we can do, and that there's no probable cause or anything like that.
I guess what we're getting
So it's just kind of like we got sent down the wrong path by a police officer with a ranger in cahoots with it.
I guess the whole thing is there's two main things. One more is the whole thing about probable causes, the whole thing of like, hey, he's black, I'm gonna go pick him up, thinking black people always commit crimes, kind of thing. Basically, since this is really butchered and the probable cause and due process is all backward, that if he were to be convicted of this felony, it wouldn't be just them failing to do their job, it would be kidnapping.
Yeah, because if there's motives that are found, you're not, and it's like, it's still statutory kidnapping if you just simply can't live up to your job responsibilities correctly, and you end up accidentally writing a ticket outside your jurisdiction.
If they look good and stuff, then it makes sense of like, oh, I'll just fire, I was an incompetent cop. But what we're saying is we gave these people many, many times, and there's now piles and piles of defamation, and we were just in a courtroom with a judge now wanting to just throw the book at him again, and so now it's getting really, really, really serious. And
so probably the two big things that we've been wanting to get over here to inform you of is, one, first and foremost, Mike West seems to think, and this is from evidence of other people asking him, ourselves asking him, the whole police department kind of joking about it, he doesn't think that citizens' arrest exists for rangers or police officers of anybody in the color of law. And I've seen the statute, I've read online, and it's a completely unanimous, consistent answer that you are not above the law in any way, shape, or form. I always get the nanny state answer. If it's always a bad idea, you might get in trouble, you might get charged with obstruction of justice.
But if you do it wrong, then you're kidnapping.
Yeah, what we're trying to say is, downright, he actually thinks that you can't, and as a result is running around.
That whole day, it would have been better if you just stood there, and all we wanted to do was summons him to court to see if it was harassment, and then later have it dump on us if it's wrong.
False imprisonment.
He straight up said, no, you can't touch us, got in his truck, drove away, and was brash enough to even tell other people we know in the forest that we don't have the authority to citizens.
Yeah, other people passed him. He's like, no, from Water Rose, they don't have the authority. And then to top it all off, at the very end, when I found him in the Lee Martinez Park, this was the third time he was approaching on his vehicle. I had very slowly, he was pulling forward in the parking lot. I stepped in front of the vehicle, he stopped. After about 3 seconds, he let off the gas, slammed on the brake, or let off the brake, slammed on the gas, and attempted to run me over. And I had to go like this and stop myself. And so I just don't know if that's really, I'm actually really, it seems like I'm in the defensive mode and as a victim slash.
The whole point of this is,
I'm just really concerned.
If you catch like your dad raping a dog or something like that, you literally forcibly hold him down and take him to the court. That's the whole point, is the power of the people. And so he essentially just ran away.
Yeah, So I know it's not evading arrest as a citizen or resisting arrest, but it's just the fact that conceptually speaking, nobody like that should be going around enforcing the law when they actually aren't correct on the actual law. So it just, we don't know what else to do. We're really
I mean,
concerned.
what we're trying
Yeah,
to
I
do
mean, I
is
think
just.
if you guys are in the court system, that's where you need to be, because this is where you got to prove it, right? I mean, isn't that the way our system's set up? Is something happens, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, tickets are issued or summons are given. You go to court, and either a judge or a jury decides what's right, wrong. They interpret the law, right? And if something happens with Mike West where I have to deal with a situation like this, I'll look to my city's attorney's office and say, what's the advice you're giving me? How should I handle this? That's who I'm going to go to.
Please, thank you.
Is our attorney's office, and I can do that.
I mean, we're not trying to sway it because we know we have these court cases. What we like to do is just give a heads up, maybe speed it up if we know it's wrong.
And
Then it
investigation too.
just-
Straight from the horse's mouth. What do you think? Just to, because you're my taxpayer dollar. That's all I care.
Yeah, I
You
understand.
guys are just trying to do your job.
And we're not trying to mistreat anybody. That's not our intention. I mean, that's not why we started the Ranger program. And overall, I think it's been a really, really successful program because we had some issues before that were repeat issues that were giving us all kinds of problems, and a lot of them have been cleaned up since we've had a Ranger program.
May I ask what kind of issues?
Well, like we've had kids from the high schools next to the ones that are right next to the parks. Like Stu Case, for instance. We had a lot of kids smoking dope over there.
Yeah.
And now that we don't have, we have a smoking ordinance that says you can't smoke on city property, and we have a ranger that can drive through there and they see him, they move on and they get out of there. And our graffiti's gone down, our vandalism has gone down because of those ordinances and the fact that we have a presence of a ranger, two ranger program.
We definitely acknowledge that there's a bunch of all the others.
Yeah.
We're calling this the little cancer gremlin.
Yeah, and now that we're kind of deeper into the conversation real quick, a couple variables that really stick out as to why I'm so concerned about Mike West, and in general, all police officers that are tasked to enforce the camping bans specifically, is what we've seen with these people is that if, especially Mike West, because I actually have other proof, there's a, I'll have to find his name out, but there was a gentleman I met where he didn't know he had a warrant out. It was for a fight fire, but basically was on the street sleeping and nowhere else to go. And when Mike West picked him up in the parks, he went straight to the warrant and didn't bother with the camping violation. And so what we see is kind of because of that, and then other times the opposite has happened. We've seen zero consistency with discretion. So, for instance, they'll ticket us in the forest with a air mattress. We'll be out on the street corner next to Jefferson Park the next day and not get ticketed.
We have a tent in it. We don't get ticketed for 2 days there. And then also when I was 20, when I was severely disabled due to doctor malpractice, I was also on the streets. And they didn't give me a ticket as long as I moved within that backyard. And because I didn't know my rights, I was supposed to get that ticket to then prove more of my life of why I was getting that ticket.
So what we see is a system where they want to use discretion because they want to help the people or help themselves out.
Right.
The benefit goes both ways. But what we see now is a complete inconsistency where, how do I
It just makes them look good no matter what. They always have it.
Let's put it this way. Yeah, and what really, really concerns me most, and this is why we're trying to get you involved at this point. The Colorado had covered some articles on the Occupy Jefferson protest, and when it got heated, the city responded with the exact statements in there. It was like a 3-part article. The first section was it's not about the sleep, it's about all the other stuff that comes with it. And they followed up with the stat of what they thought was true, which we found out isn't true, which is they claimed that 0% of the people are in jail over sleep alone.
Because if you throw someone in jail for just sleeping,
then
no warrants,
looks
really then it's kidnapping over life-sustaining activities.
And then they basically followed up with the final statement of, we need more money for the jail because we're overcrowded from all these people we're picking up on the street. And so what we're concerned about most is when in a statement like it's not about the sleep, it's about all the stuff that comes with it, it immediately looks like you're interested in using the camping van as an easy way to get to somebody's identity. Because it's probable cause right then and there. And said, because you find people that have the warrants, you don't
And
feel like you
usually
need to
four
enforce it.
people can't live in a house to hide themselves. That then
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
And so,
Oh, yeah,
it's just kind of a, I don't want to use these words, but if there's no actual legal reason that they should be being moved for, it's tantamount to human trafficking. You're moving around without due process.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but we do have ordinances on the book that say parks closed.
Yeah,
So
true.
if
But
you're
what's
moving
so funny
them,
about that
if you're
is
moving
that
them out after the park's closed, I mean, I think that's,
the funny thing about that is that we've gotten what we call sleeping tickets. That
Uh-huh.
if you're in the park after hours, they stick you with that because it's the easiest. If you're in the middle of the day with a tent, that's construction structure, so it's easiest there. And if you are
If
anywhere else
you-
between, it's a camping violation.
if you repeat
And so it doesn't actually
violation, it's an
matter.
unlawful conduct on public property.
Yeah, so a couple things real quick, by the way. The parks we've read statutorily may actually be in violation of federal law because if there's not a necessary government interest to keep them closed, and there's ad hoc programs allowing them to be open, like the Sustainable Living Fair got a chance to
Ironically, this is
keep all their
living
stuff in
fair
the park
gets to
after
be at
hours.
night.
Oh, yeah.
Other
we've
other-
written exemptions for people.
Yeah, so that means that basically if there's no necessary interest, we're actually having to challenge the park curfew law because other cities and states have actually had it struck down on that basis. So that's
Yeah,
just
usually
one of
whenever
many things.
usually when we let somebody stay overnight, we require them to provide security, because the reasoning why,
Interesting.
oh yeah, because the reasoning why we close the park is because, that's when the majority of our vandalism happens.
Yeah.
So the citizens pay the price of us having to come in the next day and,
or patrol it.
exactly,
Yeah.
you know.
So
So I guess
So,
it
we're
comes
still-
down to, because on my side I see a blanket policy. You don't want to deal with vandalism on the nuisance level, but then as a result you subjugate everyone else's rights that aren't vandalizing in the middle of the night that would otherwise have the right to be in a park because they're not doing anything wrong.
Well, if you didn't have that rule, they'd have the right to be in that park.
Exactly. But the whole rule is the blanket policy,
Well,
assuming that people are going to be.
I'm not gonna change the rule.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's
You
just
know,
on the
I
books.
mean,
We know
That's
that.
city council and that's
Yeah.
the attorney's office.
We're-
And
But
this
you
point
see
we're
what
arguing
happens.
cement,
I
so that's
understand
why-
where you guys are coming from. You're kind of getting caught in a catch-22 at times.
Well, yeah. Where we literally what we were told by our own police in our own hometown was if we can't afford a rent, if we can't afford, or if we don't get
hotel,
the
rent, house, somebody's backyard,
raffle for the
homeless
homeless
shelter that we
or the
literally,
KOA.
had to leave the city limits or else we would be arrested over sleeping because
Yeah, they literally told us that.
that's their land and therefore if the reason why we don't have money is technically our land rights have been violated our whole life, so illegal evictions, disabilities, not being able to pay our rent. When we don't have anywhere to go, that's where we keep getting put through the ringer of these supposed laws in the books.
Yeah, and I know it's a
Yeah, so-
complex problem, and I don't have a solution for you guys. As far as how you combat
We
that.
just we
I
just
guess-
figured we'd start off with the absolute clear things. One,
Mike West is a liability.
Mike West is a liability. He's going around stating that he's above the law and so forth, and is inconsistently applying it as a result. And then basically we've seen that with every other topic, every other ranger.
Well,
And
and
it looks like this crazy conspiracy that we're, crazy to think about, but we just, like I said, we've literally lived it, and we have over a dozen lawsuits right now of us going
Why we're
to
being on the
court
streets
for
is,
camp when we didn't even have tents and air mattresses. Yeah, so that's
like what we're basically saying is we have the right to sleep for free in our town to pursue a lawsuit because we're poor. And the more that they ticket us, move us, say you can't sleep there, it's actually stopping our ability to pursue lawsuits to get us off the
so
streets.
it's kind of an
So-
awkward witness tampering.
Yeah, well, I mean, I see the catch-22 of it, but at the same time, you can't just sleep anywhere in town, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
Well,
You can't sleep
legally,
in my backyard.
not your backyard.
private
Yeah,
property, no.
that's what I mean.
Public
Public
property.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, see, this is the circuitous problem that you got is that leads you back to the courts. And the
But
courts
that's-
have to decide, and,
Yeah.
we're just, and.
Well,
and-
fortunately, at least there's a lot of case law that's arisen this last couple months.
If they sit
We'll
there and
find it.
say, we can't close our parks, we won't close our parks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Oh, we're
And-
not arguing the fact that you changed. We're just, all we hear today was to just let you know about Mike West. That's all.
Well, I understand.
And like
The
I
rest
said,
is
that's a
just
whole bunch of questions and
semantics.
stuff we've just been curious about.
Fine.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you're curious, we got a ticket on an easement that was next to Jefferson Park,
Okay.
claiming that it was closed.
Mhm.
Controlled by streets, it's not. That's why we did it, is because we thought it was okay.
Yeah.
And then, just like we said, we were stopped in the middle of Softball Park, and ever since then, he's just, I really hate to say it, but he's been very inconsistent with his behavior.
Well, and you know, I know that somewhere in there, just like with the police, they have a level of discretion that's in their manuals. They can show discretion, like, you know, if they stop you for speeding in your car,
Yeah.
you know, and you're doing 5 or 6 over, they can say, hey, slow it down, and you go, yes sir, I'll slow it down, and they go, okay, have a great day. They don't have to write you a ticket. They have discretion.
Yeah. Well, this is like where they felt like they didn't have the possibility to use discretion, that we were these violent people in the forest, that he no longer can ticket or call in somebody else.
Because usually the
So it looks
speeding
like a
warning
pipe.
is they stopped doing it. We were out there every time, so they had no reason not to.
Yeah, so it just obviously just looks really fishy.
Yeah.
Why are people not ticketing us?
Yeah, you know,
Trying to build a case of us not being ticketed?
that's a pay grade above me. I mean, that's in the city attorney's office, I guess. I mean, I don't know what their strategy is, but I haven't told Mike anything along those lines. One thing I tell Mike is, don't put yourself in harm's way.
Yeah.
So if he feels like he was threatened by you and he doesn't want to approach you, I'm not going to make Mike approach you guys.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, because I don't want to put him in a position where a safety issue comes
If he
up.
says
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then
we were expecting him to call somebody else.
well, and like I said, you know, you can call, but that doesn't mean they come.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
he
because-
was directed not to call, not
No.
to do anything.
I can tell you the guy who supervises Mike works for me, and he hasn't told Mike not to call anybody.
That's the answer that we were
Yeah.
really trying to
He
find
hasn't-
out.
he hasn't-
Was there any instructions on this side?
No, not at all.
Okay.
You know, only instructions we give Mike is, you know, keep yourself safe, be smart.
Okay, perfect.
You know, and if you feel like you're threatened, that you're in a threatening environment,
It may
back
have
away.
been the police supposedly building a case, but even
Police.
then, that's due to lies in the paper. And if what we're saying is the police going along with it, we don't get how the police can claim violence against us when there's not even a police call against the police. Like,
Yeah, there was never
where's
any
our
threats,
assault
there-
charge? Where's our threat charge?
You know, they say we're attempting to influence while he was trying to ticket. If that was the case, why didn't I get the charge then? Why a month and a half later, after other charges get filed and then dropped, because they don't know to correctly file.
I guess, yeah, we'll end on the note that,
I'll end on this note. There's a very big black hole with regards to the property line of the Gustav Swanson Natural Area. We were ticketed outside that jurisdiction too.
Okay.
And I don't even know. I guess I can't even give you a heads up because it's all about the maps that are incorrect. So never mind. I was just very concerned because at this point, you know, we've just seen zero legal behavior left in our government. And we're really trying to like save it. Like we even told
We
Mike
are.
West,
Yeah.
we even told him, quit your job and save your life, or don't quit it and write us tickets and risk losing. But it's so funny. He used the word "save my life" and fought back immediately, saying, "Is that a threat?" And I was like, "No. Go to prison is what I'm trying to say." But he didn't report that to the cop.
it was in the context of
And
if
so-
you caught your doctor friend drunk, what are you doing? Save your life, man. Don't be driving. You're
Right.
gonna ruin your career
Yeah.
and
Right.
everything.
And so he took it out of context when he reported it,
Mhm.
which is silly because it's all on tape. We get to prove it anyways that
Right.
we said that.
Because
Right.
then the
But if
cops
he's
are
going around
thinking
disingenuously-
that we're violent now.
Right.
That's the scary part is
Mhm.
they're gonna be pulling guns on us. That's
Yeah, and it's
Yep.
all over. I hate to say this, but he refused to even talk with us during that spiel. He talked over us, and so I couldn't get out my words to stop him from doing worse, basically. So they ended up trying to stop me from citizens and arresting them over a harassment charge, thinking that it was just over the tickets. But regardless, no matter what, above all, it doesn't even matter what the citizens arrest is about. You basically let them do it. If you don't, then it's suppression of human rights. It's USC 232. Basically, my human right to citizens' arrest was infringed. So he and Mike Haynes physically stopped me from being able to do their arrest for either one of them.
Yeah.
So that's really violent, and it has nothing to do with me. It's them resisting, and not just resisting. But stopping me from being able to do it. And so he had a goonie with him, you know, and you know, we don't. So you know, loss is one thing, but really, the only thing we're concerned about in the end is people getting the accurate information to them. And if he's running around defiantly ignorant, we may
It's
not be
really
able to
weird
get
'cause
through to
he
him.
actually wrote me a ticket saying David was really cooperative and stood there and didn't say anything. And yet, Mike West would have been the only one who would have said it to those police officers to give it to because the cop showed up second. It wouldn't threaten to kill because it was you're there with Mike West at that moment.
It's just really, really, really messy, and we don't see him doing anything correct according to what the statutes have to offer. So that's kind of why we were like, heads up. Slash, we had some questions for you.
Yeah, I appreciate your input, guys.
So
Well, we'll see. Well, hopefully in good terms.
I hope so too.
But yeah,
so this won't ever happen again?
Yeah, I hope not.
It's just not. What bothers me most is it wasn't just him. It was the cop that responded to the call, and it was all the other cops at the protest joking about it, about no citizen's arrest.
That's not appropriate.
Yeah, if you know, it's one thing to give me the nanny state answer. Don't do it, you might get in trouble.
Right.
It's another thing to say you don't have the right to at all.
Yeah, start making funny.
Yeah, exactly. It was demeaning, you know. I'm just trying to take care of my city. But anyways, thank you very much, man. Take care.